All right, welcome back, everyone. Speaking of hype, here once again with installment number 2 of The Magic Death. Sorry, it's been actually a lot longer than the last upload, between the 4th of July and also trying to get some work stuff done, and then my wife and I went on vacation. So I'm actually now back in town and ready to get the ball rolling on this next installment of Scenario 1. And this one here, we last left off, we'd gotten all of the interviews, or the initial interviews, with all the suspects of the case. So we're going to go into the Begin Investigation tab. And we've already seen the report of the murder. We already talked to all 12 likely suspects. So let's start with the apartment. The apartment has quite a few different things here, just to get an overview. So you can click on any of the rooms. This is very similar to how they had the layout of the restaurant, and I think both, multiple floors in the first case with Sam Rupert, where you can get a gist of where all the rooms are in Elspeth Hascard's apartment and the comings and goings that may have occurred. So you can click on any of the rooms. So you can click here. So you have to obviously look at certain things for more detail. In the bedroom, let's see, no additional clues found. I'm doing this for a reason. It's not, this isn't going to be a fruitless option on the game, but here we go. So it says the crime scene, folks, found minute traces of mud in the bathroom sink that make a lab match to the unusual mud on the victim's face and torso. There are also traces of blood that do not match the blood at the crime scene. This blood is human blood, type AB. Interesting. Let's see what this ear says.
The murderer may have cut themselves and tried to wash it off here, but it could also be from the broken glass in the trash in the kitchen.
Okay. So in the dining room, the silver candelabra on the dining room table is missing one white candle. It matches the candle found on that altar at the crime scene. So clearly, the murderer essentially looks as though they utilized what was available to them in Elspeth's apartment, as opposed to them bringing an entire kit of what was needed to do whatever this voodoo ceremonial scene was. So the living room. A gold pen with a set of unidentified fingerprints was found lying on the couch. Interesting. In the kitchen, a glass in the sink contains wine that matches the traces of wine found on the victim's upper lip. Prints on the glass match hers as well. It also matches wine found on a broken wine glass in the trash. Note, there are no fingerprints on the broken wine glass. Now makes you wonder if the murderer enjoyed a glass of wine after they committed the murder. I was just trying to get rid of the evidence.
Perhaps this broken wine glass accounts for the sound Jody Howland heard last night. The question is, who broke it?
Front hall. So a luminol test reveals a partial bloody footprint on the dark rug in the front hall. The crime scene team say it's a running shoe called Duo Jump. They can identify it by the tread. The shoe is a man-size 8E width. Its owner weighs between 155 and 175 pounds, according to their estimate. The blood matches the chicken blood at the crime scene. Very interesting. Oh, actually, let me click on this ear here.
I'd pay attention to the fact, Detective, that a very narrow man's foot could be the equivalent of a wider woman's foot. I would check shoe widths in non-testimonial evidence on all the suspects.
Good to know. So we're not necessarily phasing out either gender. Alright, coat room. No additional clues found in the coat room. Okay, so we got some info from just this overall layout that I think will come in handy down the road. So let's try other sources. Okay, so the victim's desk. This one here. This has, again, another wide variety of things we can click on to gather more information. Shows you again, this game came out in the early 90s, and it just takes me back seeing this old Macintosh computer here. While I'm playing this on an iMac, which was one of the predecessors to this one. This was something I grew up on, always seeing and having to put in the old school floppy disks and all that. So I didn't have a shrunken head though. Let's see what this bottle says. Bottle on desk. A lab analysis of the contents of this glass bottle shows it contains a very unusual mix of ingredients, including aloe, cedar oil, almond oil, grain alcohol, menthol, and seawater. Only problem is that the nearest ocean is 1,000 miles away. Bottom of the bottle is marked Made in Haiti. Also, one set of fingerprints on the bottle. Also, traces of rubber mixed with traces of the oil on the outside of the bottle.
My guess is that someone was wearing gloves to hide their prints. This would also explain the lack of prints on the body.
Okay. Let's see. Investment report from Glicken, Ross, and Briggs. So hopefully this shows up on your end as far as, I think it would. So it shows a lot of regular deposits here of substantial amounts, 20,000 to be exact. So she had quite the sizable account balance.
This is the most recent in a series of reports from Glicken, Ross, and Briggs. They're a very Tony investment group downtown. The reports all resemble each other in two important ways. Every month there is a deposit for $20,000. And, according to the victim's engagement calendar, almost all of the deposits take place within a day or two of Elspeth Hasgard having dinner with Carl Schulman.
Okay, so there's that. Explains a lot and actually confirms what we were hearing about potentially Elspeth having some sort of dirt on Carl involving this Naomi woman that was in his life and who somehow met her demise when they were abroad. So let's see what this audio tape consists of.
Just a reminder from the chief. You've got 5 big ones left.
Yes.
Detective, this section of Miss Hasgard's desk contained a number of audio tapes that she used for making notes for her seminar class. Most of them have no relevance to the investigation whatsoever, but there is one interesting tape that I thought you might like to hear.
The notes for class on Thursday, October 15th. Today's class is focused on recent changes in the theory on the mothering practices of prehistoric man in the region that today is Eastern Europe. Based on findings... Shoot. Oh, hi.
Elspeth, we have to talk.
It's not a good time right now. I'm going to tomorrow's class.
Oh, yeah, well, when isn't a good time? I've been trying to nail you down and since you came back. This emotional avoidance.
I don't have to take that.
Oh, you don't? How about taking this?
So that was clearly Mark LeMay and Elspeth having some sort of disagreement. Alright. Let's see. I know that the diary and daily calendar doesn't really, I mean, it's an interesting look into Elspeth's thoughts, obviously, and what her life consisted of. I'm gonna breeze through a couple of these because some of it doesn't really ever come to play later on as far as the press conference or anything we're going to be looking to utilize with any of the suspects. It just kind of is, again, more of an insight into how Elspeth was living before she was not living. So September 3rd, I only felt better to be back. Can't shake the eerie feeling that someone is watching me. I wake up at night and see a shadow at the foot of the bed. I hear footsteps outside my door, but the hall is empty. Sometimes I wish I never went to Clarissa's ceremony. This interesting part here, Clarissa's ceremony may coincide with the zombification ceremony that it's been alluded to by Paul Budnick, and that may end up either be the person whose zombification it was for, or maybe this is the person that hosted it. So, one thing it looks like, both from the diary and you'll see on her calendar, she has a very, very unusual and consistent relationship with Miriam Tate. Meets with her quite a bit about a bunch of different things, especially the political situation in Haiti. So, doesn't want to talk about anything that's going on with her experience in Haiti, not to Miriam, and doesn't even want to think about talking about it to Mark. Yep, Mark and I are not getting on at all. Phenomenal scene made the other day, ignoring him. This one has an earpiece here.
It's interesting that Elspeth would tell Paul Budnick about the zombification and the tape, and make such a fuss about whether or not she should tell anybody else.
Yes, very interesting. It's almost like the classic psychological deal where it's sometimes easier to confess your innermost secrets to a complete stranger rather than somebody that's close to you. So, our friend Richard, even Richard's making demands. Last night he showed up at my doorstep soaking wet. He'd come through the rain. His wife was home in bed sleeping. He says he wants to leave her and marry me. He says he may go out of his mind if I don't. I told him he was crazy and to go back to bed. I wish they had some of those scenes filmed. Okay, September 16th has an earpiece here.
Lakou is the Haitian word for village. It's the most important social and political unit in Haitian culture.
Okay. I'll let you speed read through some of these again. I'm not going to recite all of it, but you get the general idea of what's going on. So looks like this is when she becomes introduced to Paul Budnick, describing him as beautiful and a little stupid, but I like him. Something about him that feels dangerous. He came over last night to review the paper topic and what he wanted to write about. We ended up going to bed together. He wouldn't spend the night. I slept like a baby for the first night since mid-August. And the 21st of September, the locksmiths came today. Results are good and bad. Good news is that Mark won't be able to let himself into the apartment unannounced anymore. Bad news is that the locksmiths gave the keys to Agnes, my enemy across the hall. It gave me a moment's worry until I remembered how stupid she is. She's too thick to think of breaking in. Besides, all the papers connected to our little dispute are at the lawyer's. So obviously she did not have very high opinion of Agnes Murray. Nor a lot of people, it seems, except for Paul. September 23rd, sorry dear diary for falling... I don't know what that says. For failing to write, sorry. But Paul has become a habit. When Mark comes over for his daily measure of rejection, it feels like a cartoon or a dream. At least Richard is laying off. He's smart enough to know it when he's lost his quarry. I think he's hoping to win out by constancy. Tonight I won't see my object of desire until after dinner with Carl, good old Carl. I'm even feeling generous towards the little monster. The power of amazing sex, I deduct. Wow. So look at that. In one entry, we basically are given little mentions of almost all the men in her life. And all in varying degrees of looking down on them, essentially. September 24th, day of errands. Despite my check, deposited my check. Looked at new cars. Saw my accountant about buying another building. Bought some red silk cords from a designer, which I don't plan to use on curtains. Whatever could they be for? September 27th, Paul spent the weekend away. I had constant nightmares. I just can't shake this feeling of being followed. I actually counted the hours till Paul's return. Am I falling in love with him? October 1st. Yep, again, more longing for Paul's presence in our life. October 4th, Mark came over while Paul was here. Ooh. We're listening to music and reading the paper. A scene of domestic bliss that left Mark sputtering. Paul was perfect, stood up, excused himself. I have to watch myself. I care for him more than I'm comfortable with. Okay. October 7th, ran into Carl at the library. We had dinner, uneventful. I guess that means that wasn't their usual monthly dinner where he shells out some money to her. October 9th, I won the Nobel Fellowship. Richard pulled me into his office at the end of the day to tell me himself. It's not officially announced till tomorrow. I was so grateful. I went to bed with him right there under his desk. Good Lord. I'm telling you, she's not exactly endearing herself to be a respectable murder victim. October 11th, I received another vile postcard. This time it came to my apartment. What does that say? I'm something convinced it's that odious little tenant of mine. Paul and I are discussing ways to get her back. From what I remember, I believe that they're referring to not Elspeth, her fellow tenants. I'm blanking on the name, but her rival in the anthropology department. Alyssa Palmer, yes. October 12th, I saw Jamaica. I was leaning towards finally telling Richard about my findings, and I wanted a reading. She said she couldn't see whether the answer was yes or no, but she said she did see someone, a woman, waiting to harm me. Probably Alyssa, since the Nobel has been announced. October 14th, there's trouble in paradise. Carl called to meet. He says we have to discuss our arrangement. Paul came over right afterward, though, and made me forget everything. Interesting. Right, October 15th, 27 years old today. Mark came over with an engagement ring. Seems to like humiliation. How can he do this to himself? I just do not understand it. I've tried to be clear and fair about my feelings. He's just hanging on. I refused, and he said I would never see him again. Good riddance is what I thought, but refrained from saying. Paul brought a better present, Dear Diary, I definitely accepted. And himself. October 16th, met with Carl for coffee. I explained the situation yet again. I even offered to explain it to his criminal defense attorney, along with the attorneys for the family trust, if it made him feel better. He seemed to understand. After all, I still have the photos. Okay, so there's not just her knowledge of what happened with her and with Carl and Naomi, but there's apparently some actual visual evidence. 17th of October, Mark came by on his way to the airport, very somber and calm. I think he finally realizes things are over. He can be pleasant when he lets himself. Richard is getting a bit antsy, I have to be honest. I've avoided him like the plague since I got my prize. Yes, she does seem to definitely, she definitely uses the people in her life to, specific degrees. Doesn't seem to have much caring for anybody, and even Paul Budnick, it's more about how it pertains to her, not how she feels about him, really. October 18th, very late. Feeling foreboding again, and they proved true tonight. Someone broke in and went through my desk. They stole my tape, all caps. Useless detective came by and asked some useless questions. She doesn't have much of a feeling for Delgado either. He just couldn't understand what they meant, what their theft means. I've discovered a major key to Haitian slave history, and my proof has been stolen. It's like what Clarissa said. The Loa have their own life and their own plans, and we just fulfill it for them. I just hope the tape did not get into the wrong hands. Paul should be here any minute. I'm afraid to be alone, and I can't tell anyone. All right. All right, real quick, we're just gonna breeze through the calendar unless we see anything where there's some some ear highlights, and we'll just listen to what those pertain to on the calendar. You can get hints for the calendar by clicking. Thank you. All right, so I guess the ones that are highlighted. Right.
N could mean Mark LeMay or Miriam Tate.
I'm inclined to think it's Miriam, given that she wrote Mark's name out in full here and here. So why would she shorten it just to M, just for the same person? Okay. Again, nothing of note. Nothing of note on this one. Another lunch with... Now she's writing Miriam's name in full. Okay. Meeting with her brother for dinner, with Richard for breakfast. Oh, here we go. Some bunch of highlights.
Pedro Rumson is a friend that Elspeth Hasgard went running with.
Okay. Call whatever this is.
GRB stands for Glicken Ross & Briggs, the investment firm. Sarah Stewart Briggs was Elspeth's account manager.
Okay.
This is the second or possibly third meeting with Miriam Tate in as many weeks, and yet Miriam Tate reported that she didn't know Elspeth well.
So she lied.
This is the first mention we see of Paul Budnick. He's the only student ever noted in her calendar.
And while it's not highlighted, interestingly enough, they meet for the first time apparently on this Thursday, and then by Saturday, we get this.
Elspeth had been offered a teaching position at Harvard. It was meant to be a preemptive offer to keep her off the job market. It shows what an outstanding scholar she really was. This looks like their monthly dinner where the money transaction could have taken place if blackmailing was going on.
Which it definitely seems like it was. Okay. Look at cars. After the bank, of course.
Her brother Damon mentions that she was looking for a new car. It also syncs up with her phone messages. I spoke to Stan Dibble, who reports that his client asked that he draw up a new will. Her current will left all of her assets to her brother, Damon Hasgard. The new will leaves one half to Damon and the other half to Miriam Tate as a representative of Elspeth's Lakou on Haiti. That's some sort of village or organization that she was a member of. She was scheduled to sign the new will tomorrow on October 21st.
Detective, there are 4 hours left. Have you looked at the apartment yet?
Yes and no. Dealing with Miriam once again.
It's Miriam Tate again. Elspeth really does see her quite often.
Okay, another just M. Dinner at home.
Is this M for Mark or Miriam?
Okay.
Elspeth was a contributing editor to Anthropology Today. According to my sources, it's a very prestigious publication.
Dr. Lovett.
Dr. Lovett is chairman of anthropology at Stanford University in California. Apparently, he was a real fan of Elspeth's work.
Well, in that case, I guess one could say that he loved it. I'm terrible sometimes. We go from Dr. Lovett to Dr. Wedgwood. Let's see if they were talking about fine china.
I spoke to Dr. Wedgwood, who reports that Elspeth Hasgard was in excellent health.
Oh, and now look at this. Paul's now getting heart drawings for dinner. And that must have been when she found out that she won the Nobel. Look at that. So she finds out she won the Nobel Fellowship by being told by Richard. And so went to bed with him under his desk this day. The next day she's having a nice romantic dinner with her other younger affair. And again, Miriam here, but then strange. Yeah, let's see.
Mark LeMay claims he did not see Elspeth for tea on this date, Wednesday the 14th, so it must be Miriam Tate again.
Very strange.
Paul Budnick confirms in his first interview that Elspeth planned to raise Alyssa Palmer's rent in retaliation for Alyssa sending poison postcards.
Right, so again, they were of the belief that it was her sending them.
Elspeth mentions this meeting with Carl in her diary. She also refers to a picture. Now, Harry Delgado said that there was no picture missing in the burglary on Sunday night, but it really does begin to look like she's got the goods on Carl Schulman in some way, and that she is blackmailing him. This was the meeting where Elspeth cold-shouldered Richard Neiman and made him so distraught.
Which we've seen it doesn't take much to get Richard Neiman distraught over anything.
This date coincides with Talaman's own report, except they met at Elspeth's apartment instead of at the Ritz Hotel.
Okay, nothing here. That's the last entry. Alright. So, we've got all the items on her desk covered. Let's go back here. Phone records. Okay. I don't know if each one of these is one we can click on. Yep.
Miss Haskard, this is Amanda. Amanda Walsh from your seminar. I wanted to make an appointment to discuss my midterm exam. I can come in anytime during your office hours on Thursday.
Okay.
Miss Haskard, this is Harold Butler. I just picked up my midterm, and I'm really upset about my grade, and I'd like to discuss it with you. Please call me at 276-9153 as soon as possible.
Okay.
Miss Haskard, you were right. I did a lot better on the midterm than I thought. I just wanted to call and thank you. See you Thursday in class. Bye.
Oh, foreign cars.
Tasker, this is Fred Foreign Cars. That Aston Martin I mentioned's in, and I wanted to know if you want to set up an appointment to look at it. Give us a call. There are other interested parties. Boy, is she of you.
Aston Martin. There's Damon.
Elspeth, it's Damon. I was calling to see if I could come over this afternoon. There's something I want to talk about. Call me.
Okay, Paul.
Elspeth, it's me. How are you? You look gorgeous in class today. Can't wait to come over and take off your clothes. Call me.
Lovely message to be on someone's machine, especially when, who knows if, by this point, if there was a chance that, well, maybe as long as the locks were changed before this, that way Mark wasn't going to be accidentally hearing that message. Here's Damon again.
Elspeth, it's me again. Please call as soon as you can. I have to go out.
Richard. Look at how close in proximity these are.
Elspeth, I've got to see you. I'm sorry about Friday. Please call me. Elspeth, it's driving me crazy not to hear from you. Please call before I leave the office. I know you're there.
Ooh. The Ritz.
Miss Haskard, this is Edward Talaman. I've received your message. I'm sorry we won't be having dinner together, but I'd be happy to meet at your apartment. 7 is fine. See you then.
Okay. Of course, Richard Neiman again at the top. Let's see if he's crying his eyes out yet.
This call was answered.
Oh.
It matches the approximate time that Edward Talman told us she did receive a call. This call was also answered. Again, this matches Talman's report. Which call does it match, though? The pleasant or the unpleasant one? And why didn't Alyssa Palmer mention that she called?
That is interesting.
I checked and Elspeth Haskard made an appointment with Fred's Foreign Cars to look at a car in the morning. It's interesting that this call was more important to her than her brother Damon's. It also indicates that she was back at her apartment by 5 p.m. Agnes Murray reported that she had gotten there more like 5:30. It's a small discrepancy, but I'm always looking for these things.
I would say, considering what we know of the victim, it's really not that surprising that she was more concerned with getting herself a new car than talking to her brother. Just seems the type.
This call wouldn't bother me if it didn't conflict somewhat with what Damon Haskard reported in his first interview. He said he went over to his sister's around 5 for tea, but at this point it's already 10 past. He doesn't live that close, unless he was on his way already and she just reached his machine. This matches up with what Paul Budnick reported in his interview, that Elspeth called him at about 9 on Monday night. She called to see if he could spend the night. He couldn't because of his paper. And a short while later, the murderer must have arrived because time of death is between 9:30 and 10, according to the autopsy.
Wow. What's this say? Oh, okay. We already knew that, didn't we? Alright, so let's get out of this. Alright, so the Voudoun expert. Again, this is something, not until this game did I realize there was even another spelling of voodoo versus Voudoun. Right? This one, I think, if I recall, is just a one... It's funny that they put this together just for one little question and one video with this character, but Dr. Hickman.
Dr. Hickman, can you briefly describe the Voudoun religion?
Voodoo is the modern-day descendant of many religions practiced by tribes in Western Africa. The Yoruba, the Luango, Mandingo, Igbo, Akada, and the Congo, to name just a few, made up most of the slaves brought in the 10th century. Over the generations. The various religions fused into one, with spiritual overlays from the Arawak to the island and their Christian oppressors. It's polytheistic, which meant God, even hunger. They're referred to as Loa, the divine horseman.
Alright, so there's no Loa is another way of saying a god. Very similar to Greek mythology, where they have a Loa of the sea, a Loa of a lot of different things. Let's see what the Voudoun symbols tell us. Alright, so Damballa is the benevolent, gentle, great father whose image is the snake. One asks blessings from Damballa, who is somehow remote in his magnificence. He rules over the waters from which he comes, prefers white or colorless food, and is not very articulate at human speech.
An image of this god, Damballa, was drawn on the floor next to Elspeth Hasgard's body at the crime scene.
Interesting. Razuli, frequently depicted with Damballa or Damballa. Razuli is the serpent goddess. She depicts the distinct and unique ability to dream of the beyond. She represents perfection while seeking it. When she has found it, she seeks more, never satisfied. In this aspect, she is seen as tragic, always wanting more. Strange, you'd think that this would have been the symbol that was drawn at the scene. It seems to fit Elspeth more than Damballa's symbol. Legba. Legba is the law of the crossroads. He is both the guardian and the link between the mortal earthly realm and the immortal invisible one. He is sometimes depicted as a bent old peasant, and yet he is among the most potent and powerful and supreme Loa. I guess if anybody is a fan, it's funny this came out so many years ago, but anyone's a fan of the more modern TV show American Horror Story, they actually had a Papa Legba, was referenced in one of the seasons when they're in New Orleans. And voodoo was a prominent part of that season as far as witchcraft and all of that. So it's interesting now to, having forgotten some of the elements of this game, to see that connection is still there historically. Ogun. Ogun is the Loa equivalent of Zeus, god of power and might. He manifests in many forms, all variations on the warrior theme. In one incarnation, he is the noble wounded warrior. In another, he is the healer. In another, he makes the metal swords used in battle. In all forms, he represents power and force. Kind of looks like the equivalent of almost a shield. So I guess that's fitting. Agua, Loa of the sea, which is very close to Spanish agua for water. Loa of the sea, of ships, watching over those that go to sea or travel over it. Associated with a brilliant shade of blue. And Ayizan, the priest and priestess, Loco and Ayizan, are the keepers of the ritual flame. They are saluted right behind Legba, but are much closer to the human plane than Legba is. They guard the ancestral past. They are also the main healers. To salute them is to salute and call forth one's own inner divinity. Well, Gede. Gede is a benevolent Loa of death in the netherworld. He is the keeper of the ancestral flame and must be consulted and informed at any major event: birth, death, marriage, arguments, or problems. He is called the Lord of Eroticism, representing sexual energy as an inevitable force of the universe. Sometimes he appears as a jester. He is also called Baron Samede. Well, again, this is almost... You would think this would have been a more appropriate drawing for the crime scene, given that he's the Loa of death in the netherworld and consulted and informed for any major event. In this case, death right there with murder, you know. So it almost tells you that was this, given the fact that we know that the crime scene, elements of the crime scene were all kind of connected to elements that were in the apartment to begin with. And then we find out that what the symbolism is and how that symbol that's on the crime scene doesn't exactly match or fit with the whole murder scene. So one would then ask yourself, is this being framed as some sort of ritual murder, when in fact it may not even involve anything to do with Voudoun? Alright, so the autopsy.
Detective, you're halfway there. 3 hours down, 3 hours to go.
Alright, so the autopsy report of Elspeth Theodora Haskard, Chicago, Illinois. Okay. Site of death is the office in the victim's apartment on the second floor of the residential building, 422 Albritton Avenue. Alright, so age 27, height 5'7", weight 111 pounds. Again, I'm just going to breeze through some of this. Deceased was discovered unclothed, draped only with a blood-splattered white cotton dress. No label inside of the inside indicating the country indicating country of origin. Preliminary analysis of the composition of the blood on the dress shows the presence of nucleated blood cells, indicating that it is the blood of animal origin. No human blood can be found on the garment, so that must be the chicken. Victim's face, neck, upper torso, abdomen, and legs have been smeared with a reddish-brown clay, possibly volcanic in origin. Clay is located on the front of the body only. Consistent with the position of the body at the time of discovery, the victim was found lying on her back, which she was apparently used to anyway. There are several sets of corrupted prints on the mud. None are identifiable. The victim's palms contain residue of dried blood. Lab analysis matches the blood with that found on the dress, so it's more chicken blood. According to the investigating officers, there was a newly slaughtered chicken at the crime scene. A lab comparison of blood from the animal has provided a exclusive match. I don't know what that... I'm not sure what that word is. Traces of both the clay and the blood are contained in the victim's hair. They match the other samples examined. God, no, if it's the screen or my glasses or both, I'm having a hard time reading this stuff. The body is thin, although muscle tone is above average. Deceased appears to be healthy and in good physical condition, aside from the fact that she's dead. The hair is pale yellow blonde, varying in length from 3 centimeters at the nape of the neck to 11 centimeters at the crown. Eyes are steel blue. Both pupils are extremely dilated. Teeth are fairly good condition and clean, but contain numerous fillings in rear molars. Fillings are porcelain composite, not silver. There are no signs of recent sexual penetration, which is very shocking considering what we know of the victim. Ambient temperature of the room where the body was found was measured at 67 degrees Fahrenheit, taking into consideration victim's size and weight and current state of rigor mortis. At 3:40 p.m., time of death is estimated between 9:30 and 10 o'clock in the evening on October 19th. So between 9:30 and 10. We'll need to know that for the when we do our warrant applications for any of the people we want to attempt to arrest. So external, there are no visible external cuts, bruises, or other signs of incision or trauma. Victim's abdomen is noticeably distended. Victim's lips and extremities display a blue tinge, indicating fairly severe cyanosis, lack of oxygenated blood flow at time of death. Higher than normal levels of sweat at time of death, indicated by presence of excessive levels of body sodium found on the victim's skin. Mouth and air passages contain unusual amounts of saliva, indicates hypersalivation at time of death. Tongue is redder than normal and slightly wrinkled. A section has been sent over to forensic toxicology for further examination. Report appended below. The lung cavities, including alveoli and interstate, I have no idea, spaces, are filled with plasma fluid, indicating acute left ventricular failure. Excessive fluid is collected in the stomach and large bowels and was present at time of death. Except for the symptoms described, all major internal organs appear to be vital and healthy. Okay. Final pathological analysis. Hypersalivation. While cyanosis, lack of oxygenated blood, resulting in a bluish tinge, is a frequent side effect of pulmonary edema, hypersalivation is not. Salivation is controlled by the automatic... I don't know, was that automatic? Autonomic nervous system? Here, the excessive amounts of saliva present in the victim's throat indicate hypersalivation due to a particularly sudden shock to this autonomic system, most typically in the form of a neurotoxin. Administration of a neurotoxin would also be consistent with the unusual texture and color of the victim's tongue. Okay, pulmonary edema. The victim appears to be in excellent health. For a pulmonary edema to spontaneously appear in such a case is highly unlikely. The heart and pericardium also appear to be robust. Therefore, it seems likely that the edema stems from another pathology. Strong neurotoxins typically cause massive dilation of the blood vessels. This could cause a nerve-mediated pulmonary edema. Note, dilation would also be caused in the blood vessels in the smooth muscle fibers, those in the stomach and colon, thus explaining the fluid accumulated in the abdominal cavity. Another tertiary symptom of this level of dilation is profuse sweating. 3. Fluid in abdomen. See explanations in 2 above. So, okay, cause of death. The victim suffocated. Suffocation was caused by fluid buildup in the lungs due to severe pulmonary edema. Additional related findings of hypersalivation, profuse sweating, and abdominal fluid buildup point to possible neurotoxin poisoning. Lab verification of tissue sample is pending. Okay. Here's the forensic toxicology report. asked by pathologist Helena Patton, analyze tissue samples for their available chemical some of these medical terms are killing me, I'm telling you. After extracting the blah 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 blah, GM chrome. Tetrodotoxin is a neurotoxin originally thought to belong only to the blowfish species found in tropical waters in several parts of the world. However, today we know that this is also found in the California newt, the blue-ringed octopus from the Great Barrier Reef off Australia, the goby fish from Taiwan, and some type of antilipid frogs from Costa Rica. It is one of the world's deadliest known toxins. It is topically active. Touch alone has been known to kill. The speed of death varies depending on the type of contact. Touch is the least potent form of ingestion. It is 40 to 50 times more powerful if ingested directly into the bloodstream. Death can take from several minutes to several hours. There is no known antidote. So, recent findings by anthropologists indicate that it may be used in certain cultures in extremely controlled form during rites of initiation and other important ceremonies. Interestingly, there are also several incidents recorded in which a victim of tetrodotoxin poisoning who has been pronounced dead by medical authorities has fully recovered. Signed, Mackley Smith, MD. Alright, so we have our cause of death being a neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin. And it seems that it was, for some reason, it was ingested by Elspeth on her tongue, as that seems to have the most noticeable effects from being in contact with the toxin. Let's see, I don't know if I have this video I began having not done the interviews since we did it last time. I'm going to see if it even allows us to do the non-testimonial evidence. Yep. So I'll have to come back to this one. So we've covered all of this except for the non-testimonial evidence. Let's see, other sources. We did that, and that's this. Yeah. Alibis. I believe the alibis we have to actually talk to the 12 suspects. So we are at almost 53 some odd minutes. So we've covered the apartment and we've covered the bulk of the other sources on the case. So I feel like I'm going to cut that here. So on our next installment, we're going to look at the non-testimonial evidence available to us, as well as what the alibis tell us. I'll run through and click on all the suspects again, just so that's covered before we begin, so we can take right off with the alibis, and maybe even proceed to the press conference and some of our in-depth interviews. Okay. With that, this is Beacon of Hope, thanking you all again for tuning in. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, yell out your window, anything you can to get the channel up and running. I will hopefully see you in the next one. Take care.